Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel and another video in the series where we are doing yoga to help relieve our sore muscles, maybe after working out or maybe after spending a long day in the office. So if you have been following along in the series, then you know that all of the videos have been up until this point focusing on specific areas of the body. So some are focused on doing leg stretches or shoulder stretches, or one we focused on the neck or the back. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, and we're going to be doing a flow that is going to help the entire body. So instead of focusing on one specific area, I'm going to show you a way that you can kind of do a little yoga flow at home that's going to help kind of target multiple areas of the body. That way, if you're sore in multiple areas or you just want to kind of do an overall body stretch, then this is going to be a great one for you. So this one will be a little more flowy than the ones in the past, and I feel like it's some of my favorite poses and some of my favorite stretches. So we will go ahead and get started. So make sure that you have your mat out if you don't already, and you may want some blocks for this one. They're totally optional, but if you're somebody that likes to use yoga blocks, you might pull those out and have those just close by in case you want to use those at any point. So we will go ahead and come to all fours or tabletop position on our mats to get started. So go ahead and come to tabletop. So if you're unfamiliar with tabletop or you haven't watched some of my other videos where I explain it, just a quick overview: make sure that your knees are right underneath your hips and then your wrist is right underneath your shoulder. So we're creating straight lines here, giving ourselves a nice base. Hands are shoulder width apart, knees are hip width apart. And we're going to just start by doing a couple of rounds of cat-cow. So we're going to warm up and stretch out both the stomach and the back. So go ahead with your inhale. We'll come into cow. We'll drop the belly down. And then on our exhales, we'll go the opposite way, reversing, bringing that back up towards the ceiling. And then inhale, dropping the belly down, opening that chest up in between the shoulders. Exhaling, rounding that back as much as you can, using your hands to push the mat away. A couple more. So inhale. You can always sway hips side to side. Exhale. One more inhale. And exhale. And then go ahead and come back to a neutral or flat spine here. We're going to bring the hands about, 6 inches or so in front of us, so a little bit farther out. And then we're going to tuck the toes under. And then inhale here. And on our exhale, we're going to lift the knees and the hips up, coming into downward dog. We're getting a big stretch in our calf muscles here. If you are new to downward dog, then a couple of just pieces of kind of getting your alignment in order is to make sure that you're pushing your shoulders away with your hands, bringing the back nice and long rather than letting your head kind of sink in between. Push the mat away with the hands. And then with our knees, if you're really tight, you might bend the knees. Heels do not have to touch. That is not a requirement of downward dog, so don't feel like you need to have them touching. And then what we're going to do, just to kind of warm the calf muscles up, is we're going to do a pedaling motion. So we're just going to bend one knee in, and then we're going to switch and do the other. Kind of like if you were pedaling a bike. One knee bends, the other leg stretches out. So we're getting a big stretch in the calf muscles and the back of the knee, maybe the Achilles. Do a couple more. Okay, and then you can go ahead and come back to regular downward dog, and we're gonna move into low lunge. So I'm gonna pick up my left foot and bring it towards the front of the mat and place the foot in between my hands at the front of the mat, and then my back knee can come down. You can either leave the back foot tucked, the toes tucked, or you can untuck them and bring the top of the foot to the mat. Either is fine. And we're gonna place our hands on top of the knee, interlace the fingers, and just spend a couple of breaths here, really breathing into our low lunge, feeling the opening up in the hip flexor here and the quad, making sure that our hips are in line. We don't have one outstretched in front of the other. And we're taking nice big breaths. Make sure that your ankle is right underneath your knee and you don't have it way back or way in front. You want to have nice alignment for our joints. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and place the hand down on the mat on either side of our foot, and then we're going to come into a half split. So this is where you might want your blocks. You don't need them if you don't want, but it is an option. If you do want them and you have them available, you can just place them on either side of the foot, and then you can either keep your foot where it is, or you can start to walk it out using the toes, and just walking it out is just going to be a deeper stretch. So you can decide how deep of a stretch you want with this. But once you have your foot in place, then we're just going to lean the hips back, pick that front foot up so we come up onto the heel. And then we're thinking about bringing the stomach closer to the thigh, getting a big stretch all along the back of our leg here. Keeping our hips nice and square and in line as we do this. And then breathing into the stretch. So our inhales are going to help us kind of elongate the back, the spine. And our exhales might help us find a little more room to bend a little bit farther towards the leg. Do a couple more breaths here. Okay, so on your next inhale, we'll go ahead and start to come up and re-bend that front knee so the foot comes back planted onto the mat. If you have your blocks with you, you can go ahead and set those to the side. And then I'm just going to bring my foot back into where it was whenever we were in the low lunge. So it's just going to come back a little bit so it's underneath my knee. And then we're going to move from low lunge into pigeon pose. So to get to that, all you're going to do is you're just going to walk your foot. So I have my left one, I'm going to walk it towards the right, so just the opposite side. I'm going to start walking it towards the right side of my mat until I'm able to place my shin bone down onto the mat. So my knee is on this, my knee is right next to my left hand and my foot is next to my right hand. Now, some people can have their leg in a kind of complete 90-degree angle here, and some can't. I'm not somebody that can really get into this and have my leg be like this. So if not, you can just bend at the knee a little bit and start to bring the foot closer to the hip, and you're going to turn a little bit so that way the top of the foot is going to be touching the mat. And then we'll square our hips over our leg here. Our back leg is outstretched nice and long. Using our hands to kind of prop us up a little bit here. And we're just starting to feel the hips open a little bit, maybe swaying side to side, opening up that hip socket, opening up the outside of the thigh. And you can play with the amount of kind of deepness that you have in this pose by using your back leg that's outstretched. So if I bring my leg in closer to my hips, I have less of a stretch. My hips come up a little bit and I come out of it a little bit. If I bring my foot out farther, I'm into the stretch more deeply. So my hips come down farther and I feel a bigger stretch in the outside of this thigh and the hip socket. So you can kind of play with that a little bit and decide how deep of a stretch you want in pigeon. And then you can either stay up like this with our hands planted underneath us, or you can start to come down, bring the forearms down to the mat, and come into a more restful alternative of pigeon pose. Wherever you are, we're going to hold for a couple more breaths. If you are down on forearms, go ahead and come back up to hands. And then we're going to go back into downward dog and repeat what we just did on the other side. So with your hands planted firmly on the mat, we're going to tuck our toes underneath in the back and pick the knee up. And then just pick the hips up, and that will allow us the room to pick up that left leg to come back into downward dog. If you'd like to, you can do a couple of pedals here. Feeling the difference maybe between the legs, the one that we just stretched out and the one that we have yet to stretch out. How one might feel a little more open and loose. And then when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and do the opposite side. So from either right, I'm going to pick up the foot, bend the knee, and bring the foot in between my hands at the front of the mat. Back knee comes down, and I'm going to untuck my toes. Hands come to the top of the knee, interlacing the fingers. And again, we're just going to spend a few breaths kind of getting our hips and our thighs adjusted here in low lunge. Feeling that stretch right here in the hip flexor and the quad. Squaring our hips off, making sure we have good alignment as we do this. Letting the hips sink down as we breathe, as the muscles start to soften up. And then we'll bring both hands down to the mat, one on either side of that front foot. Again, if you want to have your blocks for our half split, you can grab those and then decide how far out you want this front foot to be. So I'm going to use my toes to just bring it out a little bit farther. And then we'll just start to sink the hips back, pick the foot up so we come onto the heel. Making sure our hips are nice and squared again. And then thinking about that stomach trying to come to the thigh. Using the breath to elongate the spine, and then exhaling, leaning over maybe a little bit farther. Seeing if we can relax all those muscles that go up the back of the leg, letting them kind of melt into this. Do a couple more breaths. And then on your next inhale, we'll go ahead and bend the front knee, bring that foot back onto the mat. If you have blocks, you can set those aside. And then we'll walk the foot back to where it was for our low lunge. And then we'll get ourselves set up for pigeon. So again, you're just gonna walk the foot off to the opposite side. So for me, I have my right foot out, and I'm just gonna start to walk the foot towards the left side of my mat, picking my left hand up until I can bring my shin bone down to the mat. Foot comes in towards my hip a little bit, and I turn it so the top of the foot is resting on the mat. And again, you're going to be playing with where you want that back leg to be, how deep of a stretch you want to go for today. If you want to come out of it a little bit, a little less, or if you want to come into it a little bit deeper. Making sure that we have our hips nice and square over this front leg. Kind of loosening that hip up. Settling into pigeon for the few breaths that we're going to hold it for. Deciding where you want your hands. If you want to stay up like this, and you can always bring the hands closer to the hips and come up a little bit straighter if you want to play with that. Or bringing them out and coming down to forearms and resting over that front leg this way. Do one more round of breath. If you are on your forearms, go ahead and walk your hands back up closer to your hips. And then we're going to move back into downward dog here, so make sure your hands are nice and planted on the mat in front of you. Tuck those back toes and pick up the knee, and then bring the right foot back to meet the left one for downward dog. And again, if you want to do some pedaling, go for it. Feel how maybe they match a little bit better this time now that we've stretched out both. Feeling maybe the openness and the length that you got from that compared to before we did that. The downward dog is such a great place to kind of check in with our leg muscles and see how they're doing. And then when you're ready, we're just going to go ahead and come up onto our toes, bend the knees, and come back into kind of a tabletop position here. And then we're going to actually lay down flat on our stomachs onto the mat, prepare ourselves for the next stretch. So we're going to do a lying shoulder stretch. I did this in one of my previous videos where we were focused on the shoulders, and I feel like it's a really, really great one for really opening up the chest and the shoulders. So in our laying down position here, we're just going to go ahead and bring the forearms down onto the mat so our chest comes down a little bit farther. And then you're going to pick an arm, whichever one you want to start with. I'm going to start with my left. And you're going to outstretch it so it's eye level. Your hand is eye level. And then once you've got it outstretched, we're going to start to push ourselves over towards the left side, making sure that we walk our fingers out as we do this, really stretching the arm out, bringing it away from the chest, and you can rest your head onto the mat. And then again, from my previous video, I explained all the different foot placements, so you can decide where you want your foot to be. I like to bend my knee and place my foot on the mat behind my other one. But you can always leave your legs one on top of the other, or you can even bend the knees and bring them in more of a fetal position, a little more restful. So we're just opening up the chest here, really getting a stretch in the shoulders. And then on your next inhale, we're going to go ahead and untwist, bringing the feet back down to the mat, chest comes to the mat. And then you can place your hands on one of the other and rest your head on that if you want to as we prepare for the second side. So I'm going to turn so I'll be able to see you guys. So whichever one you did in the previous one, we're going to do the opposite now. So I did my left, so I'm going to do my right. So have that arm outstretched, hand is at eye level, and then we'll start to turn ourselves over towards that side, walking the fingers out as we go. So we're pulling that shoulder socket away from the chest, deciding where you want the foot to be, how far of a stretch you want to go. You can also tuck the chin in towards the chest a little bit, and that's just going to help stretch out the back of the neck as well. Another option is to bring the opposite arm behind you, and you can always kind of tuck that underneath your side. Or you can reach for the other arm, whatever is accessible. It's just an option again to open the chest up. Go ahead and take one more round of breath. And we'll go ahead and untwist, coming back to lay on our mats. And again, you can always bring the forearms or hands one on top of another and place your head on that if you want to for just a second to recover. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and come to a kneeling position. So you can just push your hips up, bring the knees in, and then come to a kneeling position on your mat. So we're going to wrap up the day with one more stretch that's going to be really good for the shoulders and the neck. So I'm going to turn around so you can see what I'm doing. What we're going to do is you're just going to bring one arm behind you and bend at the elbow so it's right across kind of the middle of your back. I'm going to start with my right hand, and then you're going to take the opposite one and bring it kind of in between the arm and the back so you can grab the elbow with that hand. And then once you've got it, we're just going to take the hand that we have here and pull on the elbow so we're kind of bringing it across the back. And as we do that, we're bringing the ear towards the shoulder, so we're kind of lengthening out all this muscle right here that runs up the side of the top of our shoulder and up the side of our neck. So we're kind of doing 2 in 1 here. So you're pulling away, lengthening out the shoulder, and bringing the ear to the shoulder, so that way you're getting a stretch up the neck as well. This is what it looks like in front. So we're just thinking about trying to relax the shoulder down and at the same time pulling this side of our head away from the shoulder to really lengthen everything out. And again, making sure that you are breathing, using the breath to try to relax all those muscles. We'll do 2 more breaths. And on your next inhale, we'll go ahead and pick the head back up and then release the arm from the elbow. Okay, so then we'll just do the opposite side. So I'm going to take my left one, bend at the elbow and cross behind my back here. My right one is going to come underneath, in between the arm and the back, and grab that elbow. And once you have it, we'll just use this hand to pull the elbow across the back, so that way the shoulder is really getting a stretch here. And then the opposite ear comes to opposite shoulder, so we're lengthening out that neck muscle. Whew, and I can really feel it today. My goodness, the side is apparently sore. So one of the reasons why I bring up the breath so much is, and what I'm using it for right now, is that whenever I got into this pose on this side, I really could feel a lot of tension in my neck, and that makes my body want to react in a way that it pulls me out of it. It wants to say, oh, that hurts, I don't want to do that. But if I use my breath and take nice steady inhales and exhales, it cues my body to know that what I'm doing is okay. Even if it's uncomfortable, it's okay, and we don't need to pull out of it. So our breath is calming the body down, and calming that kind of reaction to come out of things. So that way we can really get into those muscles and really stretch everything out and give our body some love and not feel as though, oh my gosh, I need to come out. So that's one of the many reasons why I cue you guys to use your breath and make sure that you're breathing through all of this, is to let our bodies know that what we're doing is trying to help it, not hurt it. So do one more breath. And then on your next inhale, we'll go ahead and pick the head back up and release that elbow and come back to center. All right, guys, so that wraps up our flow for today. So like I said, I feel like this is a really great one because it hits so many areas of the body. So we hit the stomach, the back, all of the leg muscles, our hips, our shoulders, our neck. So it's really easy, and I feel like it's pretty quick, and it flows decently well together. And it's going to hit so many areas of the body versus just focusing on one. So if you want to do kind of a full body stretch, then this is a great way to do it. I would really encourage you to do this right after you go to the gym and you finish up, or you can even do it at the end of a long day at work and just kind of give yourself some love and stretch out a little bit after maybe a stressful day. So if you have any questions about anything, I know that I went through it a little bit quicker than I normally do, feel free to ask me down in the comments below, or you can watch some of my previous videos. Most of the stretches that we did today have been covered in other videos that I've done in the past, and I break them down a little bit more. So feel free to look at the previous videos and the playlist that I have over on my channel, or ask me questions down in the comments below. As always, I have some suggested yoga props down in the description box for you guys if you want to have things in your home for your home practice, like blocks, or a strap, or maybe a bolster or something like that. There are some recommendations down there for you guys if you want to have some additional props at hand. Until next time then, guys, I hope that you enjoy this, and I hope that I will see you again very soon with some more videos. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye.